Okay, sorry, and there was a message saying that the meeting was going to be recorded. Okay, so briefly, the content of this presentation is about DOAJ, open access publishing models, initiatives in the publishing landscape, and then at the very end, DOAJ and APCs. You might know that DOAJ is the Directory of Open Access Journals, and it's a not-for-profit initiative that was founded in 2003, and at the moment is the largest open access journals database available. DOAJ is based on quality and transparency inclusion criteria, and I'll go back to quality in a few. To date, it indexes more than 60,000 full open access journals, meaning that there are no hybrid journals, there's no chance for embargoed journals being indexed there. And so if you go to DOAJ, you will find just open access journals. The other feature of DOAJ is that it has an international team. So there are 16 members of the core team, plus a team of other, let's say, around 100 volunteers all over the world. And here's the homepage of DOAJ, where you can see a few numbers, a few figures. So DOAJ covers 80 languages in 126 countries. The screenshot was taken on Monday, so numbers today might be a bit different. And the other thing that that there are also numbers about article records, because when publishers are included into DOAJ, they can also upload article metadata so that it's easier for them to be discovered in, for example, by commercial aggregators and so on. Sorry, but I did something wrong. I would like to be a bit provocative here with respect to the talk that was given before, because I mean, open access, gold open access, that's the focus of DOAJ, is something that's been established a while ago, but that doesn't mean that all journals that are published open access need to have APCs. And this Twitter thread from Jean-Claude Guédon and Peter Suger, that are among the founding fathers of open access, are referring to the article that's at the very bottom of the slide, and the slides are going to be available so you can read it. So just to sum up, open access is not just about APCs, and APCs are a nuance of open access publishing. This has already been discussed before, but just briefly, there are several ways in which institutions might achieve open access. And one is, well, to leave the authors do their work, their job, and let them choose where to publish, and to also to cover the costs. But on the other hand, institutions might be wanting to support own publishing initiatives, of course, investing money and supporting the so-called diamond open access model. Institutions could also establish publication funds to cover a certain amount of APCs from their author, the authors that are affiliated with that institution. That, of course, the fund is not going to be fully comprehensive of all the publication needs, but it might cover a certain amount. And then, that was also mentioned before, they could enter into transformative agreements and convert subscriptions to journals into funds to cover for APCs. I want just quickly to give you a highlight of some of the initiatives in the publishing landscape, including transformative agreements, that have article processing charges as a focus. And why am I saying this? Because, I mean, as I said, APCs are a nuance of open access publishing, but they are there to stay. And therefore, it's good to get acquainted with them. The first initiative I'd like to speak about is Plan S. That's an initiative from the Coalition S, so a series of funders from all over the world, plus the Science Foundation and the support from the European Commission. That was launched in September 2018, and basically it requires that all the scientific publications resulting from research grants funded by public funders are published in open access journals or open access platforms. And to achieve this plan, there are 10 principles and a set of guidelines for their implementation. Among those principles, there are 2 specifically related to APCs. And the first one says that any costs for publishing should be covered by the institutions, not by the individuals, and that prices must be transparent. And here is an example of what I mean with transparency of prices. This is an example taken from the open access publishing platform F1000 Research, and you see that there are 3 different types of APCs based on the different types of publishing output, like from the simple correspondence to the clinical practice article. And it's very interesting to see how the prices are split, so that you can actually know when you are going to publish in a journal that adheres to the principles described by Plan S, what you're paying for, which is not scam. It's the support from the publishers to your work. And as you see, for example, there's also, it says about authors and user support and services after publication. So there are a series of services that from the outside, we might not be seen very clearly. Transformative agreements were touched on before, and I just want you to briefly have a look at this website. Standards for Article Charges initiative that was originally started as just a pure German initiative, but that in the end is becoming the platform where all transformative agreements, at least from Europe, are being recorded. And it's led by the Max Planck Digital Library, that's kind of the authority around transformative agreements in Europe. And as I mentioned before, transformative means that the transformation goes from hybrid journals into pure open access journals, moving the subscription costs to the article processing charges costs. Last but not least, Horizon Europe, that's the current framework program of the European Commission, started a publishing initiative. And that's
дальше, короче, это все делать, потому что наращивать надо по чуть-чуть. А что наращивать?
Shall I stop?
Короче, шестерки совмещаются и делаются они выше, чтобы...
Okay, no. Horizon Europe started a publication platform that's called Open Research Europe. And because the European Commission adheres to the principles of Plan S, the publication costs are entirely covered by the Commission and by the tender that the European Commission signed with F1000 Research to build the platform. There's a price cap of €780 per article. That, of course, will not cover all the articles that are going to be published open access during the framework program, but it aims at being like a test bed to see if the researchers being funded by the European Commission likes this kind of approach, because the publication platform per se is a different thing from a journal. It doesn't have metrics in the traditional sense of metric, but it will have, let's say that the focus is shifting from the container to the content. Okay, and then quickly, an analysis of the journals with APCs in DOAJ. So you saw in one of the initial slides that one of the figures was about the journals without APCs. That is to say that although APCs are here to stay, there is a certain number of journals not requiring APCs to authors. So those journals are applying a diamond open access business model. So just recapping, over 60,000 journals indexed, over 11,000 journals not requiring APCs. And here is an overview of the remaining journals that are those with an APC. Only 41 of them are published in the Russian Federation, so it's a very low number. And you see that the distribution of the country of the publisher is very much in line with this second slide, where you see the journals per publisher. So you see that in the first 20 publishers per number of journals, they are the biggest publishers. So that makes sense, that balances. The biggest publishers have to make a living out of what they do, so APCs are a way to support their business model. But quality is key, and one of the misconceptions around open access, one of the most common bias, is that open access is a paid open access, and that paid open access means low quality. And I want to reassure about that, because I mean, among those bias, you could add as many as you want, and you might find some support somewhere, but not in DOAJ, because we take the quality very seriously. Here are some examples of a low quality journal, some of the key features. So low quality doesn't mean that the publisher is questionable. Questionable meaning that requires APCs to support its business model. So this is, well, I'll leave you the list of the features of a low quality journal, but I would like you to concentrate on the difference between low quality and questionable publishing. Generally, low quality publishers are such because they don't know how to best implement good publishing practices or good publishing standards, while questionable publishers that are also called predatory, but we prefer in the DOAJ to call them questionable because of the benefit of the doubt. They pretend to comply with the best shared practice, like also the ones that DOAJ praises for, but they have the aim to deceive the authors because in a world where researchers have to publish as much as they can for being recognized and being evaluated and assessed by their research institutions or the national evaluation programs, there might be cases where especially young students or, well, not students, but early career researchers or PhD students fall into the hands of questionable publishers. In addition to the low quality journals criteria that were in the previous slides, questionable publishers usually claim for very quick peer review periods, like 3 to 5 days, or require strange APC payment. So what DOAJ does about questionable publishing and low questionable publishing? First of all, DOAJ promotes best practices that have been formulated together with COPE, that's the Committee on Publication Ethics, that are linked from the slide. And the inclusion criteria to the DOAJ website are strictly following those principles. And in addition to that, as there are minimum criteria for inclusion, and then the best practices and the highest standards. There are cases, not many as you see, but there are cases of publishers whose journals are meeting all the criteria for receiving the DOAJ seal, and they are less than 1,500. They are also belonging not just to the biggest publishers, but also to publishers adopting an open access diamond model. So what DOAJ does about low quality and questionable publishing journals. About the low quality journals, we generally tend to provide them additional guidance to improve their publishing practices, because if they're not aware of them, we can expect they know them by heart. And of course, before being included in DOAJ, journals must prove they really improve their publishing practices. About questionable publishing, there is a dedicated team of experts managing editors. So part of the DOAJ core team that is dedicated to investigate questionable publishing practices, also based on what the users of DOAJ report. And that's it. So if there are any questions, in addition to those I see in the chat, we can see. Oh, there's an interesting one, and okay. So if Arendt wants to start, if we can do that, there's a question in the chat that asks, how does Plan S work for authors who are working on their own, perhaps retired, and do not have an institution to pay the APC? And so also linked to Plan S, do authors really want CC by Y and not something more restrictive? You can start. Yes, please.
I can start. Let's start.
We have been muted, but you should be able to, sorry, Arendt, we didn't hear anything, but aren't you able to unmute yourself? Because I've been asked to unmute. Oh, come on.
Now I'm unmuted. Now
okay, good. I'm muting myself voluntarily.
Awesome. So the answer for the question is that researchers want the version of record to be shared quite a lot. They are more skeptical about not the final version to be shared, and that is the big debate of that. And also thanks to Ilaria to kind of highlighting that. There is a case, for instance, I mean, the most extreme case is the anti-vaccination case, which was the famous Lancet article. And the question is how an article which was obviously flawed, which took a while to get retracted, how one would operate in a green environment if that article still would remain part of the scientific record. I feel that with Green OA, with author manuscripts, it would have been a lot easier for us to also move towards a CC BY non-commercial, non-derivatives license. So authors can decide what people want to do with their research. I think if a funder funds research, that research should be made available as widely as possible as part of a gold or a version, and that would be the easiest way. If it's not the final published version. That shared version could have flaws in it, could become overruled by a new version of record. This is something which we try to manage, and I think in that case the author should make their choice on what will be done with the non-complete author version of the manuscript, and they can decide to have it shared, they can decide to not have it shared, but and I can see the comment from Nick in there that authors should make their own choice and do not want Plan S to override that. I think from many other areas, researchers have seen an economic benefit of making research available open access, but it's the version of record, and I think we need to really be careful and distinguish. I don't want to hog that. Ilaria, do you want to answer to this? And unmute yourself. Ilaria, I can't.
Okay, now I can unmute myself. Sorry, just complementing your reasoning about licensing. I think that, well, in general, when I was a young librarian and I started being interested in open access, I thought that it was going to be the default thing and that everything was going to happen very, very quickly and very smoothly. When growing up and when facing the reality of the real world, I realized that things are not so easy. And also about the licenses, I think that there are going to be further negotiations on what license to apply to what version of record, because I understand both the principles of the funders wanting to mandate for the best, and the reasons of the publishers insisting on suggesting different ways. So I think that further negotiations will be the only answer to that. And to answer the first question from Nick about how does Plan S work for authors who are working on their own, I don't have the answer, unfortunately, and I don't see any possible funding for authors that are not affiliated with any organization that is part of the Plan S funders, for example, on the one hand, and the same works for example, for Open Research Europe. You have to have a grant from the European Commission to be able to publish on that research platform. So Diamond open access journals might be the solution to that. No fee required. Some of them have good impact factor. So that's my take.
I mean, Diamond OA. I mean, we also have a lot of Diamond OA journals.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they might help. Then, of course, Diamond OA journals sometimes then introduce an APC later on in their lifetime, so that the question is how long they stay Diamond. Thirdly, I would say that most research is done in teams and has got multiple authors, as well in social science and humanities. And of course, humanities and social science is a big challenge. I just see that in the chat, how to migrate to open access. But then you would probably have a co-author who might have a grant and might have access to a fund to cover the APC. I did try to allude to the fact that open access in social sciences and humanities it's a big challenge and works sometimes very differently because the funding streams are not the same as they are in other areas.
It is, and I can confirm that also in DOAJ, they are not the majority. I'm looking at the classification right now, and in the social sciences, there are less than 3,000 journals out of 16,000, and those related to the humanities are, I would say, 3,000, no more. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but I can also, extreme examples help. So if we have a Nature Physics, which publishes 150 articles a year and rejects 50,000, we read all 50,000. And that is where the cost is in reading the 50,000 submissions and publishing 150 of them. Selection is really hard. Selection is different in social sciences and humanities. And also, I really like the transparency framework because it really helps to make those processes more transparent so the community understands what that money is for and what we do with it. And not all the journals are like Nature Physics. Not all.
Okay, there's a question from the audience, the live audience in Moscow. I would love to be there. Maybe next year, who knows?